Right, good evening, everybody. It's just a couple of minutes past 6:30 now, so I think that's pretty much most people joined, so we'll get cracking. My name is Mark Williams. I'm the founder of Medical Projects, and if you haven't kind of joined one of our webinars before, we want them to be super interactive. So please make sure that you kind of get involved in as much of the webinar as you can. Yeah, as I said, I'm Mark Williams, and at Medical Projects we have been running kind of courses, lots of advice and guidance, webinars, YouTube videos and things for students that want to get into medical school. And we've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now. Obviously this summer's been completely different because of kind of COVID-19. So what we've tried to do is do a few more of these webinars for everybody, and then just make them available kind of on demand, either on our website or on our YouTube channel as well. So you can always kind of catch up with this later. We will be sending the actual recording of this out as well, so you don't need to kind of worry about scribbling lots and lots of notes down, and we'll upload it to the YouTube channel. So kind of just focus on the engagement, try and get involved and ask as many questions as you like during this. It will be about kind of 20 minutes long of us talking about the UCAT and what to do with your results, or if you're about to get your results, if you're still not sat it yet. And then we'll kind of open it up for your kind of questions and answers. We want to make sure that you can ask all the questions that you want to ask, and we'll try our very best to answer as many as possible in that 20 minutes. If you've got any more questions, feel free to kind of reach out to us on kind of Instagram, or drop us an email after as well if there's something that you really want the answer to. So just a couple of kind of housekeeping things to do with Zoom. I'm sure a lot of people have been using Zoom and various webinar software over the past few months, being kind of locked down and working from home, and probably doing a lot of lessons through Zoom or some kind of platform. But anyway, I'll just give you like a super brief overview of some of the kind of the functions of Zoom. So down at the bottom, there is a chat function. So if there's anything that you kind of want to say kind of privately to us, you can do that through the chat function. Just make sure you kind of select either Medical Projects or Mini, who I'll introduce in a second, and you can send us a message. There's also a question and answers function down there as well. So when we open up to the Q&A system, you can type all your questions in there, and I'll actually go into that Q&A function, and I will pick the questions from there and answer them from there as well. It also has kind of an upvote system as well. So if somebody else has asked a question that you were going to ask, you can just hit the kind of the thumbs up button, and it pushes up to the top, so I can see the most popular questions, and we'll try and get through as many of those as possible. We will be using the poll function as well. Like I said, it's interactive, so please just kind of, it's all anonymous, so please have a vote. It just helps us judge who we're talking to. And it helps us kind of steer the conversation in a way that makes it more applicable to you and to your UCAT results. Yeah, so at this point, I'll probably introduce Minnie. If you want to pop your video on and say hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, how are you doing? Okay?
Hi, good, thank you.
So you're now a 4th year medical student at Manchester, aren't you?
Yes, so just starting my 4th year of actual medicine. I did intercalate, so technically like my 5th year overall. And yeah, I did my first 3 years at St Andrews, and so yeah, I'm on the Manchester route, so currently there.
You switched from St Andrews to Manchester. Is that kind of just part of the natural pathway for that university?
Yeah, so everyone does the first 3 years there at St Andrews, and then they get sent all over the place. So a lot of people will go to all those different Scottish universities like Edinburgh and Glasgow, and then a lot of us end up going to Manchester. So it's been really nice switch up.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So UCAT's obviously quite a stressful time for anybody that is applying to medical school. Was it stressful for you? But I know it was probably a few years ago when you sat it, but I imagine it was quite stressful then as well.
Yeah, definitely. I remember it was really just a tough time, because I think It's such a unique thing among medics to do this exam, so no one else really kind of understands what you're going through, especially it's such an odd time at the start of year 13 if you're taking it then, or maybe on your gap year, that you're just starting to get used to the second year of A levels, and then suddenly, oh, you've got this extra exam to think about. And it's quite a weird one as well. You don't really sit anything like it, but it's just a lot of preparation stuff. So yeah, it's a pretty tough time.
Yeah, one of the things that obviously we've done the UCAT courses over summer, and so we've had like a batch of students who have all gone on and done really well at their UCAT, and got really, really good scores. But there's always that kind of next question, which is, you know, what does my score mean? So that's why we get that all the time. We get it from students and we get it from parents as well, actually. So we wanted to kind of just wrap that up in one kind of nice short webinar, give everybody the basics of what to do with the score once they've got it. And then I guess you start looking at where you want to apply and how to use that score tactically. So you're going to talk to us a little bit about that through the next kind of 15-20 minutes, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about optimizing your application and just playing to your strengths. So if you've done really well in UKCAT, then like amazing, great. Like you've got lots of options then. And then even if you haven't done so good on it, like we've got loads of options here to talk about, where you can go next, places you can apply, that will play to your strengths. Maybe if you think you do really well at interview. So yeah, we'll have to talk about those options today.
Yeah, I think that strategy is really important. A lot of people, they get their UCAT score and they think, right, I've got an average score. I'll just apply to the ones that I want to apply to, without thinking or checking what their UCAT criteria have been in the past. So it's really, really important. That's something that we always advise our students to do, is to just double check, once you've got your UCAT score, which universities will basically accept that and will kind of let you in with that. Because if you pick a university where the UCAT score is too high, you're wasting one of your four, really, aren't you?
Exactly. Like wasting an application is absolute like worst nightmare. You want to be making sure you maximize every single of your four options, because it's so competitive. You want to give yourself every chance you've got.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll hand it over to you because I know you've got some slides, and we'll get straight into it.
Perfect. So I thought we'd start off with a quick poll question, if I can get that open. So how did you all find the exam? Let's see if I can get that poll question up for you. It's always interesting to see, because some people kind of very place their strengths, and other people it's just honestly the worst thing ever. So it'd be interesting to see how everyone found it.
So we're just like watching all the votes come in now, and
Yeah.
the worst 2 hours of my life.
Same. Still is probably. It's probably the hardest bit of everything so far. So I think that's most people voted. Started to slow down a bit now. So we'll end that there. So half of you saying that it was okay, which is good. That's a good sign. Worst 2 hours of my life. Like, it's sad to hear that, but I mean, it's bad exam, but it's over and done with now, and hopefully, you'll pick the right medical schools, and then you'll never have to hear from it again. So if you can go on to the next slide, if it's going to work. There we go. So I thought I'd say a quick congratulations though to you all, because that is the first massive step out of the way, and you're well on your way to applying to medical school, which is a really, really exciting time. And I think, as I was saying, the UCAT's so difficult, and it's probably, like, I found it, and I know a lot of other people found it, the hardest part of the application, just because it's so weird, so out there. But now's the fun bit. Now's picking where you're going to apply to, personal statement, interviews. That's really where you get to show off yourself, really, and all your skills, all the work that you've put in so far in the past few years, and show them really why you want to do it. So everyone asked, I know I've seen it already in the Q&A, what is a good score? And there's no definitive way to answer that. Every year is different. There might be a really strong year one year, and then the next year the average will drop by 100. So there's no real, no way to say, oh, everyone that scored above 2,400, that's a great score. Like, there's just no way you can say that. And especially this year with how it's changed due to COVID, with people doing it at home, and that sort of situation, whether the scores will increase or decrease because of that, there's just no way of telling so far. So the one best way to look at using the UCAT score is just to look at the university criteria, really. That's the best way to do it. See what their criteria are, if they have a cutoff, if they use it for rankings, if they score from it. Are there any that you can immediately rule out automatically if you don't meet the cutoff per se? And then, as I was saying, so take previous year's scores with a pinch of salt. Every year is different. It's a good guide just to know whereabouts roughly you're at, but it's very, very rough. So another poll question here. If you've done the UCAT, has the score you've got changed which universities you'd like to apply to? So no idea before, you never picked a preference and you still have no idea. Hopefully this webinar will help with that. You had some ones in mind, say you wanted to apply to Manchester and you've got your score and you're like, oh, I'm happy with that, I'm still going to apply to Manchester. Changed a few of them, so some of them you're like, oh, better not apply there now, and then confirmed a few, and then preferences have completely changed due to what score you've got. So see those votes coming in now. So completely anonymous, like don't worry about voting, no one's going to see. Cool, so it looks like that's most of you there. So a few of you, it's changed some of your preferences, but that's a good sign that you're thinking about your score and using that to sort of give yourself the best chance really and optimize your application, which is really good. And hopefully this will help you sort of solidify maybe those options and see maybe some new options that you didn't think about. So here are the previous scores from previous years, and as I was saying, very rough, but that's sort of where most people tend to sit at, around that 2,400 to 2,500 score. So if you're around there, you're in pretty good stead for most unis, really. Situational.
Sorry, I was going to say, just on that last one, it's always important to note as well on was it the 2016 one? We didn't have decision making in there. Just so if anybody's wondering, oh, well, how come the score went from 1,800 and something, like all the way up to, the 2,500s? It's just because decision making wasn't in there. So it still is an average of 631 back in 2016, but it's without decision making in there. So it's just divided by 4 rather than 5 sections.
Yeah. Cool. So situational judgment, so that's like the bit at the end where you've got all your scenarios and you're picking which is the best option, and that's a really good place to sort of start narrowing down which unis you want to apply to, because say you've got band 3, some places might not accept it, so a lot of places do, although some it may be a slight disadvantage, so it's best to double check if you are band 3 whether sort of it will put you at a little bit of a disadvantage versus those that are band 1 and 2, but some don't even include it at all, which I'll talk about in a second. So such as Hull, York, Nottingham, Edinburgh, they'll award points towards your SJT. So if you're band 1 and 2, you'll get more points than band 3. However, you can still apply with band 3. If you've got a really high score in the rest of it, it might actually make up for those points that you could possibly lose if with a lower band 3 score, and even band 4 as well. So say it's out, there's 10 points for your score and 5 points for the SJT. If you've got a really high score, you're scoring 9 for your actual cognitive score, it might make up for you, say, only scoring 2 or 3 in the SJT points. And some also include the SJT in the interview. So if you've done really well, that might be a really good option to include if you really want to sort of bump up your interview score. So University of East Anglia actually include the SJT in their overall interview scores. So yeah, if you're band 1, it might be worth applying there. So here are a few of the unis that will not accept you if you are band 4. So definitely avoid those. You don't want to just waste an application applying to these schools if you got band 4. And as well, but if you did get band 4, there are other options that don't even look at the SJT. So universities such as Aberdeen just won't even check it. So if you've got a really good score, it's not going to get ruined by a band 3 or band 4 SJT, although they may use it to differentiate between candidates. Say you score really similar interview, they can only accept one of you, they might only look at the SJT then, but might be worth just applying to those and then, you know, wait on the interview there. So here are some of the universities with minimum cutoff scores, which kind of make it really easy to decide whether to apply to these, because obviously, you know, if you got lower, you're not going to get accepted. So these vary each year depending on how the rest of the year does. So looking at past years is just a very rough idea. So 2 universities with really high cutoffs are Bristol and Newcastle. So yeah, you really want to be applying there if you've got a really good score. And then some with lower, pretty low cutoffs, Keele and Leicester. So they will only cut off the bottom 20% of the candidates in that year. So if you've got lower score, it might be worth looking at those 2. And these 4 schools, Plymouth, Queen Mary, Sheffield and St George's, their cutoff sort of lies just below average. So it might be worth, if you're around the middle or still if you're at the top, having a look at those as well. But as I said, these may change, these aren't set in stone, but that's roughly where they usually lie. So if you did really well in UCAT, all good. Like, it's not a certainty, you've still got to smash your personal statement in your interview as well, but it does put your application in good standing as well, and you will have an advantage when trying to get an interview at some of these schools. So Bristol has a really high cutoff score, as I said, but if you do meet that score, then you're pretty much going to get an interview if you meet all the other requirements, so predicted grades and things like that. Hull York give really high weighting to the UCAT and SJT, so that scoring with the SJT I was talking about before, that's 15 whole points out of 100 just for your SJT band. King's College put a lot of weight on their UCAT as well, one of the most important factors, they say, when considering application. So that might be worth looking at, although they do look at other stuff as well. So, you know, even if you're lying, you know, around the average, it might still be worth having a look at those. Manchester, if you're in the top 3rd, band 1 and 2, then you're very likely to get an interview. So I think if you're around the top, it's definitely worth having a look at these, especially if you like the score, because, you know, it's good to get that big first step out of the way, getting the interview, even if it only makes up 1 or 2 of your choices. Newcastle as well, really high threshold again, but you're pretty much going to get an interview if you get a high score. And then Nottingham as well offers a lot of points depending on UCAT score, with 40 out of 56 coming just from your UCAT. So even if you didn't do as well as you'd hoped, it's not the end of the world. There are so many options. Even medical schools that do look at UCAT, you still can apply to those. You've just got to make sure you look in extra detail at the criteria they've got. So there's some that do give less weight. So Birmingham and Liverpool only give 30% and 25% weight respectively to the UCAT, with the rest coming from your academic criteria, GCSEs. Cardiff is really GCSE oriented. So if you've got 10 A stars, 9 A stars at GCSE, then I think Cardiff's a very good option as well. As I said before, Keele has a really low threshold score. Sunderland as well, cut off the bottom 20% and band 4. But Sunderland as well uses this roles and responsibilities form, which I hadn't seen before, but basically it looks at sort of how well-rounded you are, your work experience and your reflections and stuff. So if you maybe haven't done as well in UCAT, but you've got really good work experience and sort of the personal statement side of it is really good, then it might be worth having a look at that. And then Plymouth and Queen's Belfast as well, they're worth looking at. Maybe if you're sitting around the average, and then Queen's doesn't really give that much weight in comparison to the academic side of it. So there are other options as well, and there are some schools that don't look at the UCAT at all. So UCLan's one where they actually don't require you to sit either the UCAT or BMAT, but they do have really weird specific requirements when it comes to UK students. I think they accept a lot of international students, so it might be worth looking at that if you are an international student. But if you are a UK student, then they only accept you from Northwest England, and they do prioritise sort of widening participation. So if you fit into that criteria, maybe it's worth having a look. The BMAT as well, that's a really good option to take if you're looking at some of these schools. It is a risk because you do take it after you've sent off your application, so you don't know your score until after you sent off your UCAS. And it's a bit more knowledge based, so if that's your strength, then go for it, and especially if you're wanting to apply to Oxbridge, then definitely go for it. But I mean, it's definitely like a second chance if you maybe haven't done as well in your UCAT, having a look at these schools, working away. I think it's November that they sit the BMAT. I think it's one of those as well that you put the work in. It's not one of those, I feel like the UCAT just kind of clicked at some point, but so this might be a bit more of a stronger suit for some of you. Gap year as well is always an option. I know so many people when I first started had just come from a gap year and they had a great time. Maybe they didn't get in, got interviews and didn't get in after that. But I mean, there's no shame in it. Loads of people have done it. Loads of people choose to do it as well. You can strengthen your personal statement, get loads of work experience. There's loads of volunteering, obviously, to do at the moment with the COVID situation. You can travel, maybe that's not an option at the moment, but eventually, hopefully, when you write your personal statement, you can obviously put like that you plan to, or you've organised a trip somewhere. Maybe if you're going to do some volunteering overseas or even just locally, it's great to put on there. And also gives you great time to prepare for a UCAT and a BMAT exam again when you have to do it next time round. So that's definitely an option. And some universities actually give you the opportunity to switch from like a biomedical sciences course onto medicine after the first year. But I do caution you, if you're taking this route, it's really competitive. I had a look at the amount of places that were available for people doing this route, and I think some places might have been Exeter only had about 7 places for people to switch. So I mean, if you're really confident, if you want to just go to university this year, maybe it's worth looking into if you're really confident that yeah, you can get the top score in the year in biomedical sciences and then switch over, then maybe it's worth looking into. But it's really, really competitive, so I do warn you that yeah, it's quite a risky way of doing it. And then graduate entry medicine. So this, you might take a science course. I know there's some that might even take humanities courses. So you do your 3 or 4 years. Undergraduate, graduate, hopefully, I think, with a 2-1, which is what the minimum requirement is for most graduate entry courses. And still a competitive route to go down. There aren't as many places as there are undergraduate. I mean, there's obviously for applicants, but still, it's not an easy way, and it's still another 3 years of a university that you've got to pay for. So it's worth having to think about if you really like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get in this time, and you want to maybe, even if you want to go off and study something else and get a degree in something you're really interested in, and then go into medicine after that, it's definitely an option. So yeah, have a look into that. And yeah, so if you've got any questions, I know it's quite a brief overview. I'm happy to go back to any slides if anyone's got any questions, but yeah.
Yeah, that was a super brief kind of summary. We will send the slides out as well. So if anybody's thinking, oh my God, I didn't manage to catch all that and I want to look back at certain universities, we will send the slides out in a couple of days as well. Or we'll put them up on the website, I think, on the past webinars area. But I think that kind of like the logic that you're going through, which is kind of look at the SJT banding first and just see, has that ruled anything out? That's step one, because there are quite a few that have bandings and they say, if you've got anything less than band 2, don't bother applying. So at least you can, if you've got band 3, you can rule a set out straight away. And then if you get, say, band 4, again, you could look again and say, has anybody said that they will not take anybody with a band 4? Right, I can rule that out as well. That's always step one, is kind of look at that SJT banding, see what they say. And then it's kind of the numbers game of looking at, how many points on average it has been in the past and trying to see where you'd fit in comparison to last year. And I know that it's not going to be directly comparable at the moment because they haven't released the statistics, but that bell curve that they do will be very similar. So they'll put that bell curve across and they'll break them into 10% bandings and they'll say, right, okay, we'll take the, 2,600 points plus, which is, say, band 6 or above. So yeah, step one, have a look at your SJT banding, rule some out. Step two is have a look where you would have done on average in terms of the percentile banding, and then see which universities had their banding around there. If you've done really well, fantastic, you can pretty much apply to some really strong ones. If you're in that middle banding area and you're kind of an average type score, which has been kind of 620 to 640 in the past, then you've got a good chunk of universities that will definitely kind of accept your UCAT score there. And if you're on the lower end, just double check their previous year bandings, or have a look at the universities that just don't use it, or use it in a much smaller weighting. So it's that 3-step process that when we're talking to students, we'll take them through that process. And one thing we almost do is have all the universities kind of written out on individual pieces of paper with students, write down the banding, write down what averages they've used in the past, and go through those steps and just see which ones you've got left. So you've got all your universities on individual pieces of paper with their scores, and you're like, right, okay, I got band 2 and I got 650 or 630. So you just go out and you take the ones out that you can't, or you probably shouldn't apply to, and it gives you it narrows down the universities you should be looking at, and it stops you picking the universities that you think you want to go to. You find the ones that fit well with you, not the ones that you've picked just because of the name or because of, whatever reason you want to go there.
Yeah, it's always hard when you set your sights on somewhere and you really want to go, and then you realise, oh gosh, I've maybe missed the banding and stuff, or maybe I've not met the threshold. So yeah, it's really important for you go set your sights on somewhere, just have a look, get rid of those ones that you just know you can't apply to, and then you've got a set of maybe 8 to 10 or even 5, and then just going through those and just seeing what's your favourite really after that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where the strategic element comes in. It's not the emotion driven choice. It's the logic, numbers, strategic game. And you've got to play that game being, that medical school applicant. And I'm sure all the students that are watching will be like that because they're actually watching this webinar now, which is a good step. It's the ones that are watching this that might not be taking that super strategic look. So
I mean, I know I definitely made that mistake, so and I regretted it instantly. I didn't check the required target grades for one of the universities, and then got rejected within 2 weeks. And I was like, oh, it was such a waste. And you get annoyed with yourself because it's something that you can so easily just look it up online and make sure you've got all 4 options, strong options, and that fit you, your strengths really.
Yeah, definitely. There was a couple of questions, so I'll open up to kind of the student questions now. I can see that you guys are using the Q&A function, which is good. So just a couple of questions that students sent in before the webinar. we've kind of covered this, but I'll just reiterate it because it's been asked twice again. But kind of what is considered a good UCAT score and a competitive UCAT score? In the simplest terms, if you were just looking at the averages from last year, you'd say an average was probably 630. And so anything probably 650 or above would be classed as competitive in the past. Would you agree with that?
I'd pretty much agree with that. I think anything sitting around the average, you're in really good stead there. Like, there's options. You might have to cut some down and might miss out on those ones with a really high threshold, and then anything above that, even 650, 670, that's really, really good. Anything above that, then you've pretty much opened up all the options there.
Okay, great. So those questions came from Anita and Jasper, who sent those in before as well. So thanks for those questions. Another question that has come up quite a lot as well is, how do you think it's going to change with the COVID situation and people being able to sit the UCAT at home? From our perspective, there's not really a right answer for this yet. And I know that will irritate people because you want to know what's going to happen with the score. But I think it will go up slightly. I think people being able to sit it at home and the extra awareness that's been around the UCAT this year and around the medical school application process would have made people do more revision, and they would have got better scores being at home. So I think it's going to kind of go up by 5 or 10 points this year. But that's purely an opinion, and it's not factual until they release the new numbers. I don't know if you have kind of an opinion on that, but we can't give a factual answer for that yet, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd probably say I kind of agree with that. I think sitting at home, you kind of maybe don't have those horrible nerves that you'd get if you were going out to a test centre, and maybe you're a bit more relaxed for that first section, which is I think it's always scored the worst of verbal reasoning. So I mean, maybe it helps people relax into that, doing it at home. And I think not having like holidays over summer, and I think people just sat at home are probably going to have more time to practice. But it's so hard to tell at the moment, and especially with all the stress that's going on as well. Like, I know a lot of people are probably going to find it even worse. So it'd be interesting to see where the average lies this year.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go to the Q&A part now. The first question was about the one we just answered. So that one, that's awesome. The second one is, what is a good UCAT score? Hopefully we've answered that as well. So that's the first two done. Great, fantastic. The next one again talks about the Australian percentile scores have gone up this year. Do you expect to be the same in the UK? Yes, again, we probably touched on that a little bit there. Again, it's just opinion, but we think that they might go up a little bit. So hopefully we've answered that one as well. Next one, what are some of the lowest UCAT scores you've heard about that have got into medical school? Have you kind of spoken to any friends that have applied with lower than you expected?
It's weird because you kind of don't really talk about it when you're at uni. It's almost one of those things that, like, oh, it's done, you kind of forget about it. But I mean, from doing my research for this webinar, I know I had a look at Edinburgh, who were really good. They give you like loads of stats about who's got offers, who's got in, and there were people, I think the lowest one this year or last year was maybe about 2,330. So that's like below the average by not sure how many, but so it was 2,330. So I mean, it's not the end of the world if you are below the average, and obviously there's places like Kiel that do have a threshold of about 2,200 and something. So and then also have a look at how they use it afterwards as well. Some of them may use it as a ranking, and then some of them might just, you've met the threshold and then they'll forget about it and it's on to the interview or personal statement or whatever next. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, similar. I think we've had a couple of students that have come to us and with lower UCAT scores, and we have either advised them to go and sit the BMAT. So if they've got something like 560, 570, 580, we've either said, look at these universities which were on your list, or we said, go and do the BMAT and give that a go, because if you want to apply this year round, you might as well with that score. And sometimes it is the BMAT's better suited to other people that prefer essays, and they just get into that rhythm of writing, and they can smash, you know, some great scores on the BMAT. So if you've got something less than 600, you know, don't panic straight away. You think, oh my God, it's all over. Just be strategic. Think about the BMAT, or have a look at the universities that you know just don't use it, or kind of rank it really, really low. So hopefully that's answered that one. Cool. So I don't know if you want to answer this one, but it's...
No, I'm happy. I mean, it's good to hear from like an actual person that's got in. So I got, I think, 637.5 average. So like, I think it was pretty much like maybe like on the average or just above the average for the year I did it, which was, oh my gosh, how old was I? 2015? Ooh. But I made the mistake of not optimizing my application. So I was really happy that I got into St Andrews, who do use the UKCAT. I think they, sorry, I keep calling it UKCAT because it used to be UKCAT. It's UCAT now, isn't it? But I think the St Andrews ranked the top 400, and I still managed to get an interview just on my UCAT ranking. So, and it was pretty much average. I didn't think I was going to get it at all. So, like, I think you do hear from a lot of people that have done like amazingly well, and a lot of the people that do the talks like, oh, like I got 700, but I mean, I got pretty much spot on average and got in, and here I am. So, I mean, yeah, you can get in whatever happens.
Yeah, good point. We're going to mention it a few times about being strategic, but that's what this game is all about. That's what applying to medical school actually is about, is a little bit of strategy. So it has to be mentioned quite a few times. Cool. When will the average scores for 2020 be released? I think last year it was kind of mid-September when they released the results. So I'm expecting yeah, I don't know if let me just check the results to see if they've said if they're going to delay it.
I remember seeing November somewhere, but that sounds really late. But
yeah, what I'll do, I'll ask another question. If you want to kind of answer another question, I'll just do a bit of research and see if they've just updated the release dates. But as far as I'm aware, it's kind of mid-September.
So would having a band 1 or 2 balance out having a lowish UCAT score? Depends how low it is. I think maybe it's worth having a look at those that have a lower cutoff, just to make sure that like you're at least getting, you know, seen and stuff, and then maybe having a look at those ones that give out points for the SJT. I think some schools like Nottingham, and I can't remember which one it is, show you a breakdown of the points they gave out for each score last year, and then each SJT band, and then maybe working out how many points you'd get if you applied last year, and whether that would, you know, get you an interview. So I mean, it's tough to say because obviously I don't know how low the score is, but yeah, it's worth having a look at those that rank them separately, but it might be a bit difficult if you're applying to those ones that only look at the UCAT and cognitive score itself rather than the bands as well. If you have an above average UCAT and you only consider one BMAT uni, would you do the BMAT for just that uni? I think it depends on how much you want to go for that uni. I mean, you've got nothing to lose other than having one option, you know, less for, you know, the score that you've already got for your UCAT. So if you're dying to go to Oxbridge or go to UCL, then I'd say go for it. But I mean, if not, if you're willing to take the risk of not knowing what score you've got, then I'd say go for it. and like if you're willing to put the work in as well. But yeah, just know that it is a bit of a risk if you know you've got a good score, having one less option for UCAT scores.
Just checked as well. The UCAT, the consortium is still saying that it's going to be mid-September for the interim results to be released. So I'd expect
quite soon then, isn't it?
Yeah, in the next couple of weeks, and then they'll release a few weeks later, the actual bandings and all the percentiles and things. But that initial average and the scores will be what most people want to see.
Cool. Is the BMAT harder to revise for than UCAT? It's just different. I think the UCAT's so hard because like there's nothing to actually revise. It's just you're practicing non-stop and doing practice questions, whereas the BMAT, you actually do have to know stuff. I think there's an actual science section, and I didn't do the BMAT, so I've got a friend that did it and I've read about it. So I think maybe it could be easier in a way in that like you've actually got information to sit and learn, and then practicing your essays. That'll if you've got a teacher that is helping out with your medical school application, or you've got a parent that will look at your essays, that'll be a big help. So I suppose it's easier in some ways, and then harder in other ways, in that it probably is a little bit more time consuming maybe than just doing practice questions for UCAT. So difficult level, I'm not really sure because I haven't done it, but it's doable. I've had a friend that's done it. So
with all the BMAT questions, I'm just looking at our webinar board. We're going to do a different webinar just on the BMAT. I think on the 14th of October it's penciled in at the moment. So all those BMAT questions, I'll leave them for now, and then we'll do a BMAT specific webinar later. So just have a look on the website for that.
Right, so I'll go to this one then. Is a score in the 2,500s okay for unis with a minimum cutoff? So those ones with like bottom 20%, yeah, that should be fine. I think for those around the middle, that looks to be all right as well, but have a double check. Obviously, if the scores go up this year, it's not a certainty that, you know, you'll definitely be above the average. But I mean, have a look at when the scores come out. If you're still above the average, then I'd say, yeah, you probably could go for those. It's just those top schools like Bristol and Newcastle with the high cutoffs that probably not worth it with that score.
There's just something about the deciles there. So someone's asked like, oh, what does below the third decile mean?
Okay.
It's a really good question. So essentially what they do is they take all the results and they literally split them into 10% segments. So let's say, I don't know, 10,000 people did the UCAT this year. They will literally take 1,000 scores, 1,000 scores, 1,000 scores. So it breaks it into percentiles or deciles. So it's just a way of kind of grouping. So whoever's in the kind of the top 10%, you're in like the first decile, and then it's just a way universities can filter a little bit easier, I guess. So if you have a look on the UCAT website, you can see the previous year's kind of deciles. So when we're talking about deciles, that's all it means. It's kind of you're in the top 10%, or you're in the top 50%, or you're in the kind of the top 70%. So that's all we're saying when we're talking about deciles.
Oh, that's a good explanation. So is St. George's a good medical school? I think all of them, it's so bad to say, but all of them are really good. Like all of them are GMC accredited. Like they all have to be top notch pretty much. If you're all going to be qualified doctors when you come out of it. So I think a lot of the time it's not whether it's good or bad, it's just whether the teaching suits you, and obviously whether the application process suits you. So have a look at, you know, where your strengths are. If you've got a good UCAT, if you have a good personal statement, whether it fits, and if you like the place and you like the uni, then go for it. I don't think there's any good or bad medical schools. It's just, you know, different ways of teaching and things like that. So do you know any specific universities where admission heavily considers UCAT scores? So I think So as I was saying, Bristol, Newcastle, if you meet those really high thresholds, then I'd say you're in really good stead to have an interview. I think pretty much almost guaranteed if you meet all the other requirements. Manchester as well, if you're in that top third and you've got band 1 or 2, you're pretty much set for an interview. So I think those are the ones that you should be looking at if you, and then I think, as I was saying before, in Nottingham as well, put a lot of weight on it, but I don't think they've got an actual cut-off score. So yeah, it's worth having a look at those.
We just try and fit another couple of questions in, just because I'm quite aware of time.
Yeah.
So if you just want to kind of pick 2 more questions, and then we'll just let everybody know about where we're going to send the slides and things like that.
Okay, so what UCAT score is required generally for St Andrews? So St Andrews, at least when I looked last time, they'll rank everyone that applies with their UCAT, and then they'll interview the top 400 per se, and then, well, that might change each year, but that's generally what they did. So I was quite late to an interview, so I assumed that I was reasonably nearest the bottom, and I was about, so as I said before, I was about 637, so 2550. So that's about where the level's at. So I think even if you've got a reasonably average score, then you know it's an option. And there's fewer people apply there as well, so it's worth having a look at. Do they release cut-offs after applications or before? I think they do it after. I think they change depending on how the cohort did that year. Oh, after applications though. Ooh. I'm not too sure on that one, but I think it would be after, yeah. So depending on if they've got a flood of really good applications, the cut-off might be higher. So the only thing you can really do is look at the general average for everyone on the UCAT website when it comes out. But I think they generally do decide after applications, because they only can interview a certain number. So they'll like create a cutoff
they send the results to the universities in kind of November time, I think, once all the analysis has been done. So the universities will be fully aware of all those deciles sit, so they'll know what your score is, they'll know what the average scores are, and they'll know all the deciles, so they'll know which decile you fit in. So that's when they'll look at, right, we'll take, like Manchester, like you say, we'll take the top 30% or the top third, so they'll put a cut-off after that third decile and cut everybody else. So they'll have all that information when you're applying, but you'll have that, you'll know what that is as well, because they release it kind of in November for you.
Awesome. Right, so what is the average generally? So I think it's worth having a look at the UCAT website, but it tends to be around sort of 630-ish, maybe jumps up 640, maybe down to 620, but it's around that area. So yeah, if you're above that, then good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions about the averages and things, and hopefully we have managed to answer, those really, really core questions, and hopefully we've answered some of the slightly different questions as well to do with deciles. And we will send the slides out probably in the next couple of days, so check your emails for those, and we'll also upload them to the past webinar section on the website. So if you miss the email or it falls into junk or something like that, just go to the past webinar section in a couple of days, or go to the YouTube channel, because we'll upload the video there so people can watch it back as well. If you've got any super pressing questions that that we didn't manage to answer in this as well, feel free just to drop us an email. I can either pass that to Minnie, or I can pass it to one of our other mentors and see if they can shoot you a reply as well. I will kind of just wrap it up there. So, really appreciate everybody tuning in for this tonight. And thank you so much, Minnie, for giving up your time to kind of talk to us about the UCAT as well. It's really appreciated. Awesome.
Cheers. Yeah, good luck everyone with your applications.
Yeah, best of luck. Now, hopefully you're a bit more kind of educated around what to do with your results. Keep checking back for more webinars, and we'll hopefully see you on a couple more soon. All right, thanks guys.
Bye everyone.